Hello, welcome to Soil Show and Tell. My name is Blaine and I'm a librarian with the Lexington Public Library. And I'm going to talk to you today about soils, you guessed it. There are three main types of soils: clay, which you're probably familiar with, silt, which you may not be as familiar with, and sand, which I think you're probably really familiar with. And so if you think about silt is a very, very, very super fine, so maybe like the texture of like baby powder. So when you think about sand, how that feels, right? Silt, so like a baby powder, how that feels. And then clay, like when you think about those, they're very different, right? So sand is very coarse and the particles are very large. Well, maybe not very large, but larger than other things. Versus clay, where everything's really smushy together, and then silt. The soils are very important for many, many reasons. They provide habitat for lots of little tiny microorganisms. They help filter pollutants out of the groundwater. Most importantly, everything is built on soil. The plants that we eat grow in soil, and even our houses, roads, and libraries are built on soil as a foundation. Included in this link is a PDF to this little zine about soils. It's got all sorts of really cool information about why soils are important and how to read a soil jar, which we'll get to in just a second. But first, I want to show you what the three different types of soils look like. So when you're comparing and contrasting different soils, there is this is also in the zine, it's a little more scientific, but I drew it here. So you can see, it's backwards, the soil triangle. So clay is up here, silt is down here, and sand is down here. And then there's this new word, L-O-A-M, loam, which is a combination of several different types. So when we're analyzing soil, we can think of it in terms of a continuum, right? So very rarely do you find full clay, full sand, or full silt, like silt in your backyard. But usually it's a combination of several different types. So we are going to take I'm going to show you some true clay, true silt, and true sand, and then we can test some from our backyard. Okay, so we're going to start at the top with clay. This is a jar of clay, actual pure clay. I'm sure some of you have sculpted with clay. Hopefully you have. It's a fun experience. But here, sorry, camera's over here. You can see this is really dried out. We're not used to like super dry clay. But what I will do is pour a little bit out on, I'm just gonna get it with my hands. So it's it crunches up really fine though. So, and if you can see, there it is. So like this little thing of clay here, if you squeeze it, so it's pretty fine. See, it's coating my hands. And so here we have that. Okay, our next soil type. Before I move on, I just want to read to do. Clay is very nutrient rich, but it's very heavy and waterlogged. And I wish I hadn't poured out my water because I would have showed you what it looked like. But this is very difficult for plants to thrive in. It's very heavy and it sticks together. So you can imagine trying to grow your roots through this would not necessarily be a pleasant experience. Great for clay, great for sculpture, maybe not for plants. Okay, so next I have a container of silt. Silt is very soft, very smooth, and it's very, very fertile. So it holds moisture well. So this is like, in river deltas, Fertile Crescent, all the farming, so that this is why. It's great for plants, particularly ones that really like moist conditions. So this here, I'll show you. This is super fine. Like it's super fine. So I'll put it here and we sort of rub it around, but it's a much darker color. I think you can see that. So it doesn't even coat my hands as much as the clay because it's so fine. It just kind of runs away. Not runs away, gets wiped away. And then the next soil type is sand. I'm sure you're all familiar with that from your sandbox. You know what sand is like, right? Sand is very coarse. right? It doesn't even stick to my hands at all, hardly. Like big pieces will stick to my hands. So it's here. You can even hear it. So listen. It's much louder. Okay. So remember, loam is how they all go together. Sand is very large particles. So it's probably the largest. There's lots of air pockets in sand because it doesn't smush down into like clay would or allow things to pass through like silt would. So sand has very little water retention because of all these air pockets. So not super great for some plants, but some plants do really well in sand. Like, for instance, I think leeks, those big long onions that you eat. Okay, so now we have my garden soil here. You can take a look at it. I'm gonna put it here and we're gonna see what it looks like. Feels like it's got a little bit of clay. It's smushing like clay. I don't feel a lot of sand. Feeling like it crumbles pretty easily. And it's the color of silt. So I might think if I was going to categorize this, I would put it somewhere between these two. Like a clay silt sort of vibe. It's not really clay, it's more silt, I think. So that's what I would put. I will tell you that you can, there is, if you're really into soils, there's a whole soil survey, U.S. Department of something, agriculture. I'll link to it. It's a pretty interesting site to see. So I went outside and I put some soil in this jar, and I think I actually have too much in there, so I'm gonna dump about that much out. You wanna have, there we go, about a third, looks like a half. This was just from my garden, there we go. So I don't know what kind of soil we have, but you're gonna put the soil in the jar, any jar, doesn't matter, could be a cup, bowl. It's good, you wanna make sure you can see, it's glass so you can see through it. So a big glass cup. And then you're gonna fill up the rest of the way. Oh. So, and then we're gonna put the lid on it, and then we're gonna let it sit undisturbed for about an hour. And during that time, the different components of the soil will start to separate out, and then we'll be able to compare it to our 3 types of soil and see which one it's made up of. Okay, so we've waited for the soil jar to settle. Remember how it looked? Now check it out. So you can see, take a good look at that. So, here are the things to consider, right? So this is again in that zine that's linked below. This has clay is usually going to be the top layer, any other clay. So I don't think there's a top layer. You're going to have any organic, all that stuff at the top's organic matter. So little bits of sticks, little bits of wood chips, leaves, other things like that. Any middle layer is going to be silt, and the bottom is going to be sand. And I'm thinking we're silty here. I don't really see too many different layers, but it's interesting to see all the stuff shake out. Let me shake it again. That's what it looks like. And there you go. So take some jars outside, spend some time, see how quickly it starts to, really starts to kind of start to separate out. Anyway, I encourage you to think about soils rather than just dirt, right? There's all kinds of different types. There's sand, there's not just clay and silt and sand, there's clay silt, clay sand, all kinds of cool stuff. So I encourage you to get out and look, and hopefully you learn something, and share with us what your soil looks like. And don't forget to check out our Facebook page for other cool summer events happening. And as always, you can find us at our webpage, lexpublib.org. Thank you for watching. Bye.